Navy SEAL Sniper Training Program. Trigger Control. 1. The art of firing your rifle without disturbing the perfected aim is the most important fundamental of marksmanship. Not hitting where you aim is usually caused by the aim being disturbed just before or as the bullet leaves the barrel. This can be caused by jerking the trigger or flinching as the rifle fires. A shooter can correct these errors by using the correct technique of trigger control. 2. Controlling the trigger is a mental process, while pulling the trigger is a physical one. Two methods of trigger control used with the sniper rifle are smooth action and interrupted pull. A. Using the smooth action method, the shooter takes up the initial pressure, or free play, in the trigger. Then, when the aim is perfected, increases the pressure smoothly until the rifle fires. B. When using the interrupted method of trigger pull, the shooter takes up the initial pressure and begins to squeeze off the shot when the aim is perfected. However, because of target movement or weapon movement, he pauses in his trigger squeeze until the movement stops, then continues to squeeze until the weapon fires. C. Trigger control developed as a reflex. The shooter can develop his trigger control to the point that pulling the trigger no longer requires conscious effort. The shooter will be aware of the pull, but he will not consciously be directing it. A close analogy to trigger control can be found in typing. When first learning to type, the typist reads the alphabetic letter to be typed, mentally selects the corresponding key, and consciously directs a finger to strike the key. After training and practice, however, the typist will see the letter which has to be typed and the finger will hit it automatically. This then is a conditioned reflex, conditioned because it was built in and reflex because it was not consciously directed. The same type of conditioned reflex can be developed by the sniper. When he first starts firing, he must consciously direct his finger to squeeze the trigger as soon as the aim is perfected. As a result of training, however, a circuit will be established between the eye and the trigger finger. The eye, seeing the desired sight picture, will cause the finger to squeeze the trigger without conscious mental effort. The shooter, like the typist, is aware of pressure against the trigger, but is not planning or consciously directing it. D. Developing trigger control. In all positions, one of the best methods for developing proper trigger control is through dry firing, for here the shooter is able to detect his own errors without having recoil conceal undesirable movements. Only through patience, hard work, concentration and great self-discipline will the mastery of trigger control be achieved. 3. Factors affecting trigger control. A. Concentration. The shooter's concentration should be focused on the perfection of aim, as trigger control is applied. Concentration, defined as the will to demand obedience, is the most important factor in the technique of trigger control. B. Placement of the trigger finger and grip on the rifle. The finger should be placed on the trigger in the same place each time. Only through practice can the shooter determine which part of his finger should go on which spot on the trigger. Any position of the finger in relation to the trigger is acceptable so long as the shooter can pull the trigger straight to the rear. Moreover, in order to achieve a smooth, consistent trigger squeeze, stock must be grasped firmly and in the same place each time. C. Follow-through. Follow-through means doing the same things after each shot is fired, thereby ensuring that there is no undue movement of the rifle before the bullet leaves the barrel. The shooter continues to hold his breath, to focus on the crosshairs and to practice trigger control even though the rifle has already fired. By doing this, the shooter can detect any errors in sight alignment and sight picture and he can correct them after follow-through has been completed.